This is You Should Talk To, a podcast for busy marketing leaders who are looking for support and tips on getting shit done. In each episode, Daniel Weiner interviews marketing leaders and discusses their experience, successes, and failures around hiring agencies. If you're interested in finding and choosing the right agency partner, then let's jump in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the You Should Talk To podcast. I am Daniel Weiner, your host, your sponsor, your everything. You Should Talk To pairs brands and marketers for free with vetted agencies and or freelancers for marketing and tech needs, because finding great agencies is a pain in the ass and time consuming. Super excited today to be joined by Brandy Blackwell, who is VP of Marketing at Another Broken Egg. Brandy, thank you very much for joining today. How are we?
Oh, doing great, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's dive right in. The first question I ask everybody, to start with a little controversy: what's an unpopular opinion you have in the marketing world, or a hot take of sorts?
I would say my unpopular opinion is I'm not a huge fan of loyalty programs.
Interesting. Do tell.
Well, I during COVID saw a lot of the race to launch a loyalty program, and I have seen loyalty programs that I believe are good. I've seen ones that I don't think are great. But really what I've seen happen is some of the loyalty programs actually, are implemented but don't really drive incremental revenue, or they don't drive visits. And if they do, it's based on, a discounting model. So the checks actually don't end up being profitable, or for a franchisee, doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint, and you end up giving away sometimes more to a customer that may have already come to visit you. So I have different opinions on when loyalty makes sense and the type of brand that it makes sense for.
Sure, I'm curious. I can't remember who I was reading this from recently, but their opinion was that nobody is loyal, truthfully, to brands. Do you think that consumers are loyal to brands, or it's not that deep?
I don't know that I would say they are loyal to brands. I think that's a strong statement. I think that they are big fans of certain brands, and they shop where they feel like they have, there's a unique selling point for that brand. And that goes with, anything, airlines, restaurants, shoes. So part of it is experience, and part of it is that, that is the leading brand in their mind, so they seek it out. But I think there are very few brands that are, I would say are above being traded in for another. So, and I also think when it comes to loyalty, certainly I don't think it's something that, I do think it's something that we would absolutely, would make sense for certain brands, and done strategically can drive traffic and can drive check. But I also think that it is historically implemented without a lot of strategic thought behind the plan.
Sure. Yeah, the strategy behind it is incredibly crucial. It's if I'm going to take any advice in the restaurant world, I feel like it's from you. You've had a ton of experience. We've got Tijuana Flats, McAllister's, Dunkin', Jimmy John's, and now Another Broken Egg. Tell us a little bit about that journey, and I'm particularly interested in what have you seen across consumer behavior, and how it's evolved throughout your career in this world.
Yeah, so I've been with several brands, and it runs the gamut from QSR to fast casual and now to full service. So I've seen a lot of change over the years. I started my career really at 23 in marketing at Tijuana Flats, and I went from much smaller brand, building a brand from 25 to 100 plus units, but doing it very much through a grassroots marketing approach, and a lot of boots on the ground, lots of local events, sponsorships, less digital. And then as I progressed in my career, I started in 2017 in McAllister's Deli, and was the first director of off-premises, which obviously was still is a hot topic, but started that whole catering, delivery to go, online ordering. So anything that left the building and a lot more digital interactions and touch points. So I think that kind of was the beginning of, for restaurants, really jumping into that off-premise and starting to embrace it. So I was in the beginning of trying to sell in this third-party delivery madness and did that for quite a while. And so I thought it was a unique place to go, and also leaned in a lot to POS integrations and a lot of the technology side, more so than traditional marketing or local store marketing. And then had the opportunity to go work for Dunkin' at their headquarters up in Boston area, which is awesome. I was on the digital team there. Definitely a loyalty program that is effective, I will say. But again, high frequency and convenience and value, which also is a way to create a great loyalty program.
It helps we're all addicted to coffee as well in marketing. So.
That is true. So, high frequency and convenience does drive a lot of behavior. So digital app and the digital space there was critical. So I was able to join that team and learned a lot in a very large organization, a 100% franchised organization. So in understanding from a franchise point of view, franchisees exactly what they're looking for and ensuring that I understand that model, which honestly it can be very different than a corporate structure. And then, after Dunkin' joined Inspire Brands, I moved over to run digital e-commerce for Jimmy John's. Again, a lot of the back to kind of still online ordering, a great app experience, a great, getting people through the funnel and converting them, and attribution and looking at where the consumer is coming into the funnel, where we're losing them in the funnel, and then getting them all the way through to hopefully a transaction. And then, got the opportunity to actually reconnect with my old CEO that I worked with over at Focus Brands and McAllister's Deli, and had the opportunity to run a marketing department again and a brand calendar and really have my hands in everything. And that was something I felt like kind of came full circle over the past 16 years of my marketing career. But that digital journey is definitely the difference in what I've seen, and the technology to support it. And then also just the customer data and being able to actually start to use that data are really the biggest changes I've seen through my career so far.
Have you seen a crazy big difference, or any one or two things that jumps out at you in a post-COVID world?
Off-premises growth, that skyrocketed. I think it's to some degree it's leveled off a little bit, but just the change in consumer behavior to even just smartphones. I know we go back to that, but I think it's important to reiterate is that, the days of your parents or the boomers, or, my parents are older than boomers, but not having, a smartphone are gone, right? And even the social media channels you get on Facebook, it's a much, so 20-something-year-olds aren't even touching Facebook. It's sure. No longer. And, I would say people are starting to age into their platforms a little bit. And then the new TikToks of the world come out, and we have a new channel, or Snapchat, that people are, spending all their time on. And so I think a lot of what I've seen is just really the difference in the customization, personalization. I think restaurants are still very far, behind some other industries, but just the ability to reach people in such real time in the space that they want to be met in, and then the growth of off-premise, it's all technology related, really.
Yeah, I find out, I joke, but it's true. I know everything I know because of TikTok these days. I find out everything new. I get most of my news and find out about stuff, especially food and restaurant related, from food influencers and people talking about different products and new stuff. So, I haven't been on Facebook in ages, truthfully. I don't have it on my phone, but wildly addicted to coffee and TikTok. So. Yeah,
there's quite a few of my team members share their facts of the day in our team meetings, and they're all TikTok based.
Rope me in. I'd love to join. I've got plenty of stupid stuff in my head that I've learned from TikTok. So.
And sometimes they preface it as, I can't confirm or deny this.
100%.
Come from TikTok. And sometimes they just say it like it's a fact, and they would stand by it till they die.
Until you make it.
Yeah,
you
right.
You got to sound confident in
That's
what
right.
you are saying.
Very much so.
I'm curious, kind of twofold here. in talking with a ton of CMOs and VPs in my world, 2024 didn't start as rosy as many of them were hoping for. I'm curious, what's your best piece of advice for other marketing leaders out there on how to survive or thrive? And then in particular, I'm curious in the food and restaurant space. It's incredibly competitive. Like, what's your your advice, or how do you look at standing out in 2024?
It's tough. I think we go back to if it's not it wasn't COVID, it's a recession, or it's
always something.
It really is. And it's tough to, as a marketer, to say, because, of course, when sales are down, it's your job to fix them. And when they're good, it's
nothing you did. Yeah.
Most of the time, I won't point any fingers here, but it's usually somebody else in the organization. So,
Sure.
I think that it's really important right now. It sounds very basic, but to stay positive, because it can get very overwhelming, because you're just trying to do everything and you're trying to do as much as you can, but you're doing a little bit here and a little bit here. And sometimes it's you only have so many resources, and you can only work so many hours, and your team can only work so many hours. So I actually think kind of resetting on strategic priorities, really looking at what we think will move, and this is different for every brand, but what we believe will really actually drive sales and will move the needle, and putting most of our energy into those things, because it can get overwhelming and chaotic of new technology and software and things we want and things we want to do, but resetting on what's really working and what we want to accomplish this year is a focus for my team, just to not get lost in the chaos and the fear of where a lot of the economic issues, we're at its highest debt right now for credit cards in history. Inflation's still there, interest rates are still high,
Sure.
Gas is still high. All of that are indicators that we may as an industry be challenged, and I think that goes outside of restaurants as well. So kind of being able to be patient, ride the wave, but stay focused on some of those key business drivers that actually aren't just what everybody else is chasing, what you need to chase for your business, and that's unique to it should be unique to your specific brand.
Sure. I think that's good advice also for, or unintentionally good advice for CEOs and leadership as well, to give time to their marketing leadership as well. Instead, they're giving unrealistic expectations and timing. It incentivizes, I think, bad behavior, and kind of forces you to try to do shit that doesn't work, or that is going to have short-term versus long-term value.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of the things like loyalty programs, for example, if you were to launch one, it doesn't launch overnight. I think it's a misnomer that those are 18-month projects, right? So you got to start them now for a next year, to recognize them next year. But I think, leaning into some of I would say also just leaning into some of the, AI, of course, and some of the tools and resources that have developed recently that can help you reduce some time and some manual labor and manual hours from your team, and also the stuff that causes like burnout. I think that there's a lot, as more and more online reputation management, online reviews come in, and the volume increases. It's also finding those tools and really investing in them that can support your efforts in some of those channels that really do bog down your team in a lot of time.
Sure.
So being smarter.
Yeah, no, it's great advice. My favorite question of the entire podcast, I'll ask now. Most folks with your title, VPs and CMOs especially, are getting hit up, I don't know, 1 million times a week by agencies, vendors, salespeople all over the place. I imagine that is the case for you. If you had to give a PSA of sorts to folks out there who want to work with you, agencies, vendors, whoever, what would you tell them? A deep breath first.
Ooh, yeah.
I feel this brings up some PTSD for most folks. Are you, I guess the first one, I just assume these things, but are you getting hit up 27 million times a week?
Oh yeah, hundreds of emails, even probably a day sometimes. And
thank you for taking the time to come.
Yeah, and I ask my IT, I say, what is that, what kind of firewalls or spam filters do we not have, first off? And, my favorite, this will be a little funny, but my favorite is like, I assumed you might, have been eaten by an alligator. I laugh a little, but I assume you're too busy to talk to me. And I'm like, maybe I just don't want to, or maybe I have no interest, right? Or there is actually a fact of I might not have interest in talking to you. Now, I will say on the flip side, my PSA is to do your homework. There's nothing worse than getting a spam email from, I say spam, it's not necessarily spam, a sales pitch that goes to our CEO, our IT person, me, HR, right, just to get a warm body, and then they all forward it to me. So I get now 10 more emails as the right person to talk to. So there's a little bit of research there, and just kind of being a little more connecting. You want to connect, right? Like say something that might actually be personal if you want to even probably read the email. But I would say your best bet is know somebody or have worked with somebody that can vouch. Referrals are really our world, right? Restaurant industry specifically, we are such a tight-knit community. And so I can call 5-10 people to vet out a certain platform or technology or program before I even have a conversation with that group. Or I can, I'll know somebody that has used that loyalty platform or has used, this reputation management program, because there's only so many out there. Sure. And if I haven't heard of them, it's probably not a great sign either. So I would just say, the more you can use your resources this goes both ways for anybody. I know sales jobs are important too, but before reaching out and build a connection and actually have a point of reference, or in both ways, it's going to cut out a lot of the back and forth, and it's going to be a more meaningful conversation, or even get the ability to get a conversation scheduled is usually because you know somebody.
Is there any expensive gifts or anything, or was there any ridiculous gifts that anybody has sent you? We had Kaylin from Aaron's on last year. She received an iPad in the mail, and when she opened it and pressed play, it said "Go Dogs" because she went to Georgia. That was a good story we had on here last year. Have you had any ridiculous gifts sent to you?
Yes, and I don't mind a nice gift when I'm already working with you. A gift that is nice, that has been sent to me that I didn't know was coming, right? Because otherwise I would just probably, if it's an offer for tickets or something, I don't take it because it's just policies. But
we love ethics here.
But if something just arrives in the mail, which it does, and it is grandiose, and you have either maybe only talked to the person once or not talked to them even, it feels a little bit like a scary stage 5 clinger, first date, second,
It's thirsty.
It's like, I use a lot of like dating analogies back in the online days, it's kind of like you went out once and whoa, like we're not going on a trip with you, or don't buy me jewelry. It's just like too much. Now I feel pressure because you spent too much money versus it actually being that I like you. So, and I know, listen, I know it's hard, and I don't want to actually say anything negative about the sales world. It exists for a reason, but there's certainly, don't call my cell phone. Like, it's just, there's certain things that just feel like my personal cell phone. There's certain things that start to feel a little bit like, we can't get away from and have any kind of time away. And I think everyone feels that in this industry. So being mindful and respectful of that, or somebody saying no for a second, third time, there's an element of just being respectful, and no is no, at least for now.
Yeah, I for sure agree and respect the hustle of the sales industry. I think there's a thoughtful way of doing it. I think, truthfully, the biggest thing I see is the thirstiness around short-term thinking versus long-term. Like, my PSA is like, chill the fuck out, truthfully, to like relax a little bit, you can't force relationships or like having somebody. It's also, I just think, I see it from the agency side. I think agencies have an image of like a VP and a CMO sitting at their desk with like a bag of money, and they're like, oh, like
eating bonbons, yeah.
Like, let's shell out some budget today,
like online shopping, yeah.
A little bit. So yeah, I think I agree that it is overall a little thirsty, but respect the hustle for sure. But no, we'll move in. It's Friday. I'll give you the option. You want to do a positive or a negative agency experience to start?
I would say positive. I think
start positive, yeah.
I think that you kind of just hit on it too. It's really feeling like you connect with the group immediately, that there's not a constant sales pitch RFP. I don't like those things. I don't like a formal RFP. I think it's needed sometimes, but I think I lead a lot with my gut, and so I've had good experiences where I literally had a 30-minute conversation with an agency, and I chose or didn't choose to work with them or move forward because I just felt like it was artificial, and in this case, I felt like it was not artificial in the conversations. And naturally, there has been referrals that have come from prior to that. So I know when I'm going into it that, it's there. There's at least some quality and some great qualities of this agency, and they've been a good fit for many great brands. Might not be my brand or my need, and so I love when someone's kind of willing to just listen, be comfortable, not pushy, and I've gone through that. It's been great. And then also isn't trying to sell me on every piece of the business that, a full agency. I don't know that every agency does everything. I will say doesn't do everything wonderful. You're generally stronger at bits and pieces. And that's been something I've seen over the years change, where it's not just a one-stop shop for everything. And if I do creative in-house, I certainly am all for, my creative team is in-house. I'm all for guidance and support and optimizations, but I don't want you trying to sell me a whole package of the creative and, all the resources and things I might not need for my brand. And there's a lot of need to put their stamp on, AOR, and I think you have to kind of date for a while too. So once you're with an agency, I don't know that it's always perfect going forward. So I think there's a period of time that I like to get to know an agency after I'm working with them before I can truly say that it's a great experience also. But just that initial gut feeling and the willingness to adapt to what your needs are from the get-go and not try to change that as soon as you get into a partnership has been really a good experience for me over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think something you touched on of, seeing a change from like full service type agencies. I think COVID was truthfully like the great equalizer, kind of like spread out talent to a lot of different places. There's not necessarily like all the talent in New York or Los Angeles or huge cities anymore. Like there's talented people everywhere, and there's talented people at small agencies, big agencies, a lot of agencies. So, the hard part is finding the right agency. Can you think of at some point in your career a negative agency experience you've had, and what made it negative?
There's been quite a few. I mean, I think that a lot of it is honestly your account executive lead and your day-to-day point of contact. 100%. It can make or break anything, whether it's organization to feeling like they really care and they're proactive and not reactive. So I that really is kind of the negative piece, is that I one of my biggest pet peeves is finding out after the fact. Certainly there's a learning curve and everything's, new campaigns or new channels need time, but I don't want to go like 3-4 months and say we could have done this, or hindsight I would have moved more budget over here. Well, this is why I hired you, to tell me those things, and I have an idea, a good idea, but I don't know it, or I'd be doing it all myself, and that's why you're the SME. So there's a little bit of that like push and pull where I want to be respectfully told that maybe my ideas aren't always great, or that I know you're working that throughout this quarter to make sure that my money is going, every dollar is going as far as it possibly can. And I don't know that always happens. I think sometimes you get courted. I've seen that happen, and then it's, you go through this, you tell them, here's my budget, right? And then it's set it on and forget it. And I always want my agency to be able to let me know when things need to change or better ways to do what we're doing. And nothing irks me more than finding out after the fact and then saying, well, oh, we could have put your data list in here, or could have done some retargeting with, lookalikes, but we talked about it, we didn't do it. Okay, well, hunt me down until we do, right? It's like,
now all of your agencies
I will
are
go
going
get
to listen
that.
to this and hunt you down.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, no, but really, I mean, we're going a million miles per hour.
Sure.
I need you to come to me and tell me what you need from me to make sure that I'm setting you all up for success, and we collectively up for, us both up for success.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it's like a sixth sense too, like for great account people and whoever's managing the account, to know when to push and when to not, and to know like when, regardless of what you have going on, when they finally say things like, hey, like we really need to get you on the phone and stuff like that. Like it's important enough to do that. So I think that is, it's hard to teach that type of stuff. I feel like that's one of the skills at agencies that, like, as an account person, you either have it and get it, or you kind of don't, and you have to like have something bad happen for you to like be like, oh shit, I should have done this.
Just pick up the phone. Yeah, transparency, and and really just transparency is a lot of it. So I think when I haven't felt there's transparency or don't understand what's being or why things are happening, that's been the challenge. And so I would just say, the more communication and clearer an agency can be with the brand and the client is going to make for a more successful partnership.
I agree. You just hit the nail on the head too with something I say 100 times a day. Whenever there is a scenario, my first question is, did you pick up the phone yet?
Yeah.
And like 90% of the time it's like, no, we've been emailing. I'm like, just call them. Like it'll get solved in 12 seconds. I'm guaranteeing it. And then it usually does. So yeah, picking up the phone is
people think that something's wrong, right? Like if you need to get on the phone, it's amazing how things have changed.
I'm like that too sometimes when people ask to chat. So
yeah, my friends were joking the other day. We did a dinner, and they said, unless you're dying, don't call me,
My partners think I'm weird.
I said,
call
come
so
on.
much.
And we're girls, we're supposed to talk, and so I guess, yeah.
I'm with you. What are you most excited about in the marketing space at the moment? AI is a very hot topic these days. In-person stuff is back. What are you most excited about?
I think I'd be remiss not to say a little bit about AI. I'm not a guru here, but I certainly understand there are plenty of positive, scary things too, but positive implications and results that are going to come from continued AI movement. I listen to a lot of the stock market, and it's all the buzz there. I follow the money, right? So I think that AI in general I see it helping us already with, again, I mentioned this earlier, but specifically like online reputation management. We have the ability to, with one of our platforms, AI's, helping us to answer the first pass at some of the basic reviews, or even a 5-star, and it's kind of rotating some messages. We don't use all AI. We have a person that physically does everything and does a first pass before it goes to franchisees. But if somebody doesn't leave a comment, they just leave stars, and we want to say thank you, and we have our brand voice, and we have, approved, and we work with it to learn. It certainly is helpful because it does, listen, I don't want my social media specialist to be answering reviews all day, every day,
Sure.
All weekend. That's how people quit, and that's how they get burned out, right? So it has served a purpose there. I think it serves a purpose in smarter media buys. We have a limited budget, and so as we look at where we spend our money, it helps us go narrow our target. Now, honestly, and also talk to them in more real time, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Like, it's one thing to know who your customer is; it's another to find a lookalike. But to be where they are at the right time is where I think AI is starting to really jump in. And I do think also just like I said, efficiencies when it comes to technology and marketing. AI is going to continue to make things smarter for the brands and for our messaging. Other things I'm excited about are really some of the technology and tools that are available for even like media, like deploying media, like local store media. Part of the problem has been for marketers forever, and still is like, how do we show a true like return on your ad spend? And not everything's going to have that. Some are impressions, some are awareness, right, and the top of the funnel. But there are platforms that we're starting to look at, or we are working with, that enable us the ability to see results in real time. And AI is actually, able to make the local store marketing and dollars and media more effective. And for example, a franchisee then could invest on their own in the platform, dial up their meta efforts, dial up something, some of their Google ads, and see the return in real time, or pretty real time. And so then it's not us claiming that something worked, and then obviously we want it to translate to sales. So that's always, at the end of the day, if it doesn't translate to sales, it's hard to justify. But it does give us more of the ability to show transparency around media dollars spend and the efficacy of those dollars and how far they actually go. So I'm excited about a lot of the technology that's out there, our CRM, our customer data. I geek out over that, like how we actually finally do know how often a person comes to visit another broken egg. And I would say that COVID also propelled a lot of that technology, and people, at least for the restaurant industry, we always relied on genuine hospitality. And while that's still critical, core of the business, and operations are core to success, we absolutely have to understand who our customers are and be able to find them with our media dollars, because it's a crowded space out there.
Sure, yeah, extremely crowded. What keeps you up at night and stresses you out from a marketing or business standpoint?
All those sales emails that come in. If I don't have it on silent or turned over. No, I'm kidding.
I'm going to edit out your real answer and just leave that in there.
That's fine. That's fine. That's okay. I don't hide much. I would say this, I'll honestly go back to like the two things. So economic factors, really. There are just some things that if people aren't spending and cutting costs, I don't always think I'm going to be the only place that they go spend their discretionary income at. I'd like to be, but it's fair to say that we still are in a challenging market. So that truly keeps me up at night, because I could do anything I want to do with marketing. I could get more money to market. It doesn't change if somebody's not able to spend. And I do think we are in a weird time for that. And I think the next 6 months are absolutely going to continue to feel those pressures, if not longer. And so that's a big one for me. Secondarily, the enormity of the software and technology that's out there. So I find that it's challenging to really know if you are missing out on something, or to want something, but you have to pay for it for 100 units in order for adoption to happen in many cases. And so your marketing budget tends to start becoming a technology budget, but you actually need dollars to go spend on media. So there's an element of that, like constant new technology better. Do I have the right one? Do I want to change? Because it's a nightmare to change, online ordering or your POS system. But all those costs add up, and they start to eat away at margins and bottom lines, not only for your marketing budget, for your franchisees. And just being really mindful of like how much is too much sometimes with technology, and how much do you really need a platform, and is it going to drive sales and improve your overall business, and versus being a shiny object. And I really think I struggle with, erring on the side of franchisees quite often versus getting the new technology and the software that I want, because I know that that's their hard-earned money, and that every penny matters to the, on a dollar for a franchisee. And so when you start to think like that, you don't sell in things that are just nice to haves. They're have to haves generally.
Sure. Well, I hope you get some sleep in between worrying about all of that. But no, we'll finish with some fun ones here. What was your very first job growing up?
I worked at a gift shop when I was 16, shortly after I worked in a restaurant. So I do want to preface that is 17 I worked in a restaurant. But 16 I worked in this little fancy gift shop, and I was required to wrap quite a bit of presents, and I to this day am still terrible at that. So I can only imagine how awful the people that got the presents when they'd buy something. Oh, do you want this wrapped up? So it was. I still cringe when I think about some of the gifts that I handed over to people. But it was a little fancy gift shop with lots of trinkets and things.
I always want to know if there's anything from that job that you still that set you up for success. I was apparently not in the gift
No,
not in
the gift.
Customer service maybe.
Well, I couldn't have gotten worse, so I'm sure
That's
I got a
good.
little bit better in that. Customer service, the owner owned a restaurant next door. Actually, that was not the restaurant I worked in, but she was terrifying, and she was like I say terrifying, but she was terrifying. She was a wonderful businesswoman, and I went back 10 years later because it was back in Winter Park where I was from, and saw her, and she just hugged me, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see that I had sort of grown up and become a big girl, and she was still cranking away and running that restaurant. But I had a lot of respect for her because she did it all by herself, and then she opened a second restaurant on the other side of the gift shop, so a little neighborhood.
Nice. What would your final meal be?
I always say pizza. I could eat pizza every day. Yeah, I'm a Hawaiian girl.
Okay.
So I have to do half Hawaiian, and my partner does he does something else in the other, which is a very expensive pizza, especially if you customize both halves.
That's a big relationship.
It's like a $35 medium pizza, so.
You guys can figure out splitting your pizzas. I feel like that's a pretty important relationship.
Oh, he'll eat the leftovers all day long. No problem with the Hawaiian leftovers, so.
That's right. What's your favorite item at Another Broken Egg?
So I am a shrimp and grits person. I'm a little more on the savory side, but gosh, we have so much good food that there's not anything on our menu that's not delicious. It's just how much do I want to indulge in a day, and how much do I want to, splurge on something.
Sure. And then my final question, who is somebody who inspires you personally, professionally, or both?
So I wouldn't say it's a typical answer for a celebrity or anything like that necessarily, but there's a couple women in my industry, and I'll just name them. Julia Stewart, Karen Stutz. They're women that inspire me in the industry because they have kind of worn both sides of the hat. They've worked in marketing, and then they've worked in operations. They've been CEOs, which I think in a honestly, especially years ago, male-dominated industry, they're just like boss bitches. I look at them and I like you defied odds in a much more challenging time, and just ran circles around, some of everybody, but some of the men even in the organization, and just really powerful women that I honestly think are like just kind of icons for me.
That's awesome.
And I've been able to meet them, which or even become friends with them and others, of course, but just those are two that stick out to me, and they just have a good story.
That's awesome. We love to hear it.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining. If anybody wants to look you up, I would suggest LinkedIn, but do not send a shitty sales message unless you have done your homework. Also, don't send me the expensive gifts. I'll make sure they get to Brandy. Is there anything you'd like to push for Another Broken Egg? Any new menu items or anything especially exciting that everybody should go check out?
Yeah, we are opening, so we always, let's start with the menu because I oversee culinary and our beverage innovation. And we do have a chef that's massively talented. We launched our winter menu on January 10th, and we have, 4 unique seasonal selections, and we launched another 4 at every restaurant in April, at the end of April. I will tease out that we are continuing to expand and test some great lunch forward items that we're introducing. We just launched mocktails, and we'll be launching some more when it comes to the beverage category. But what's really exciting is that we are going to open our 100th cafe, and it's still a secret of where it's going to be, but lots of celebrations.
You don't want to soft launch it on the You Should Talk To podcast here?
Let's just say it could be in Texas, it could be in Virginia. Those are just a little tease there. Construction, you never know what's going to happen with restaurants getting built in a timely manner. So it could be neither. But we are just pumped about our road to 100, and it's a big milestone for the brand. And I'm just I feel very blessed to be a part of the organization at a time where, not many brands could say they had, 100, and we have a wonderful brand with a great core and culture that I'm just proud to be a part of. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing awesome stuff, and they're lucky to have you. And yeah, you're killing it from what I see and hear in the industry.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
One day at a time. Thanks for having me.
That's true. It's the weekend now, but thank you very much for joining, and we will chat with you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for checking out this episode of You Should Talk To. This show is brought to you by the company with the same name, You Should Talk To, a company that helps marketing leaders find the right agency or freelancer for their situation. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow You Should Talk To wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit YouShouldTalkTo.com for more information.